Some cages are made of gold. Some prisons have panoramic views of Manhattan. And some monsters wear tailored suits and call it love. The kitchen doors of Marrow and Vine burst open with their usual violent rhythm, steam billowing, Chef Antoine's French curses slicing through the air like knives. Lena Marlowe moved through the chaos like a ghost. Shoulders curved. Head down. Black apron tied high and tight, hiding secrets that would shatter her fragile new world. 4 months pregnant. Broke. Alone. So exhausted that even her dreams had abandoned her. Marrow and Vine wasn't the kind of place that tolerated weakness. Manhattan sleek, all dark wood, Edison bulbs, and the quiet power of old money. Hedge fund managers proposed over $30 cocktails. Celebrities hid in curved leather booths, their secrets safe behind champagne bubbles and truffle foam. The kind of place where a Good Friday night meant $200 in tips, if you smiled hard enough, moved fast enough, and never, ever made eye contact with the wrong person. Lena had become very good at being invisible. She balanced 3 plates on her forearm, duck confit, seared scallops, something with edible gold that cost more than her weekly rent, and delivered them to table 12 with the smooth efficiency of someone who'd learned that survival meant blending into the walls. The couple barely glanced at her. She was furniture. Useful. Forgettable. Just the way she needed it, the shadow calls. Lena. Rafe's voice cut through the ambient jazz, sharp with tension. Her manager stood near the host stand, his face tight, his hands fidgeting with the reservation book. VIP just sat in the shadow. The shadow. Lena's blood went cold. That's what the staff called the corner booth in the back, the table hidden behind a latticed privacy screen where light didn't quite reach and conversations disappeared into expensive silence. Reserved for people who wanted to be seen arriving, and unseen while dining. People with power. People with secrets. People who could end your career, or your life, with a single phone call. I've got 6 tables, Rafe. Not anymore. His jaw worked like he was chewing glass. Marcus is covering them. The reservation came through an hour ago. Direct line. No name. Just a number and, very specific instructions. Specific instructions. That meant someone who expected perfection. Someone who could destroy her night, or her life, with a single complaint. What kind of instructions? Rafe handed her a wine list that probably cost more than her security deposit. Bottle of Chateau Margaux 2015. 2 glasses. They want privacy, and they want it seamless. He paused, his eyes holding something that looked like pity. Don't mess this up, Lena. Whoever this is, they're connected. Lena took the list with fingers that had gone numb. The baby, she still couldn't think of it as her baby, not yet, not when everything felt so temporary, pressed against her bladder with casual cruelty. Her back ached. Her feet screamed. She wanted to sit down. She wanted to sleep for 100 years. She wanted to rewind 6 months and make different choices. But rent was due in a week. And landlords didn't accept wishes as payment. The wine that changed everything. The sommelier met her at the wine cellar entrance, already cradling the Margaux like it was made of spun glass. $2,000 a bottle, he murmured, his French accent thick with reverence. Someone is either celebrating, or showing off. Or buying something that can't be purchased with mere money, Lena thought darkly. Like silence. Or loyalty. Or fear. She balanced the bottle on a silver tray with 2 Riedel glasses and approached the shadow. Through the privacy screen, she could make out shapes, a man's broad shoulders in a dark suit, a woman's elegant posture, the glint of jewelry catching Edison bulb gold. Lena took a breath. Straightened her spine despite the ache. And stepped around the screen. The woman in red. The woman noticed her first. Stunning in the way that money makes inevitable, crimson dress that whispered couture, diamond earrings that caught light like trapped stars, dark hair swept into a style that screamed, professional blowout before every event. She looked up at Lena with the polite disinterest of someone accustomed to service. Finally, the woman said, her voice smooth and just slightly impatient. "We've been waiting." "My apologies." Lena kept her eyes down, focusing on the wine label, the grain of the table, anything but the people sitting there. "May I pour for you?" Her hands were steady. They had to be. After 4 months of this, after learning that shaking hands got you fired, and fired meant eviction, and eviction meant sleeping in her car again with a baby on the way. She worked the cork free with practiced efficiency, that soft pop of pressure releasing, and began to pour the first glass. "Maxim, darling, look at the color. Isn't it gorgeous?" Maxim. The name hit Lena like a fist to the solar plexus. No. Not possible. Not here. Not him. When monsters have names. Her hand trembled. Wine splashed against the rim of the glass. She steadied herself through sheer force of will, finished pouring, and began on the second glass. "Don't look up. Don't make eye contact. Don't breathe too loud. Don't exist. It's adequate." The man's voice rolled through the space like distant thunder. Deep. Controlled. With an accent that turned vowels into weapons. Russian. Educated. Bored. Lena knew that voice. She'd heard it whisper promises in the dark. She'd heard it issue commands that men with guns obeyed without question. She'd heard it say her name like a verdict. Her real name. Her eyes lifted without permission. And there he was, 4 months pregnant. Hiding in plain sight. Working herself to exhaustion in a restaurant where the rich come to forget their sins. Then he walked in. Her husband. The man she fled. The monster she thought she'd escaped. With another woman on his arm, planning a honeymoon, while Lena carried his child beneath her apron. The moment his cold, winter-gray eyes found her belly, every door slammed shut. Every exit disappeared. Because Maxim Volkov never lost what belonged to him. And now? He'd just found his perfect leverage. He sat across from the woman in red, exactly as Lena remembered, and nothing like him at all. Older, maybe, though he'd always seemed ageless in that way powerful men do. His hair was still dark, swept back from a face that could have been carved from Siberian ice. His suit was Tom Ford or Brioni, something hand-tailored to accommodate shoulders built with violence before they were draped in wealth. His eyes were pale gray. The color of winter sky before snow. Those eyes swept over Lena with the same polite disinterest the woman had shown. He didn't recognize her. 4 months of hiding. 4 months of disappeared hair, honey brown now instead of the platinum he'd preferred. 4 months of weight loss, then pregnancy weight coming back different, softer. 4 months of glasses she didn't need, of slouching, of making herself small and forgettable and safe. It had worked. Lena finished pouring, her heart hammering so hard she was certain they could hear it. But her hands stayed steady. Years of practice. Years of being whatever he needed her to be, decoration, possession, proof of conquest. Will there be anything else? Her voice came out perfectly neutral. Perfectly professional. Not at the moment. The woman waved her away with casual dismissal, already turning back to Maxim. Now, about Santorini. I was thinking we could extend the honeymoon to 3 weeks instead of 2. The villa has. Honeymoon. Lena backed away from the table, her legs somehow still working despite the adrenaline screaming through her veins. She made it around the privacy screen. Made it 3 steps toward the kitchen. Then. Stop. Everything in Lena's body went cold. Maxim? The woman's voice held confusion, a thread of irritation. What? The waitress. His voice was different now. Focused. Sharp. Call her back. Lena's feet rooted to the floor. Run, her instincts screamed. Run now. Run fast. Disappear into the kitchen and out the back door and keep running until the ocean stops you. But her legs wouldn't move. Her body had learned too well what happened when she disobeyed Maxim Volkov. I don't understand, the woman said. Did she do something wrong? Call her back. Rafe appeared at Lena's elbow, his face pale, his voice tight with fear. Is there a problem? The gentleman would like to speak with you. The gentleman. Rafe was scared. Which meant he knew exactly who was sitting in the shadow. Lena turned slowly. Her hand instinctively went to her stomach, covering the slight swell beneath the apron. Protection. Futile, useless protection. She walked back to the table on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. Maxim had stood. He was tall. She'd forgotten how tall. Or maybe she'd trained herself to forget the way he seemed to fill space just by existing in it. The woman remained seated, her expression cycling between confusion and annoyance. Look at me. His command was soft. Intimate. The voice he'd used in their bedroom when he wanted her attention. Her obedience. Her surrender. Lena raised her eyes. Recognition hit his face like a physical blow. His expression shifted, surprise, anger, something that might have been pain if he were capable of it, and settled into a terrible, controlled calm. Yelena. Her real name. The one she'd abandoned along with everything else. What an unexpected reunion. The woman in red looked between them, her polished composure cracking. I'm sorry. Do you two know each other? Maxim didn't answer. His eyes moved down Lena's body with clinical precision, cataloging changes. Her hair. Her weight. Her glasses. The apron. The apron that didn't quite hide the curve of her belly. His gaze locked there. For 3 seconds that stretched into eternity, the entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. When he looked back at her face, his eyes were winter itself. How far along? Lena's mouth went dry as desert sand. I don't know what. Do not lie to me. Each word was precise. Controlled. Vibrating with barely leashed violence. How far along? The woman in red stood abruptly, her chair scraping against hardwood like nails on a chalkboard. Maxim, what the hell is going on? Who is this? Serena. He didn't look at her. His attention was fixed on Lena like a predator that had just spotted wounded prey. Go to the car. Excuse me? We're in the middle of. Now. The single word cracked through the space like a gunshot. Serena flinched. Around them, nearby diners had gone quiet, sensing the shift in atmosphere the way animals sense an approaching storm. Serena grabbed her clutch with shaking hands, her face flushed with humiliation and rage. We are going to talk about this. Yes. Later. Go. She went, her heels clicking an angry rhythm across the floor, past curious eyes and whispered speculation. The moment she disappeared through the entrance, Maxim stepped closer to Lena. Close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive that brought back memories she'd spent 4 months trying to kill. Close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. Scene 2, 4 months of searching. You ran from me. His voice was barely above a whisper, which somehow made it more terrifying than if he'd shouted. You disappeared in the middle of the night like a thief. No note. No explanation. I had 30 men searching for you, Yelena. 30 men for 4 months. And nothing. He leaned in, his breath warm against her ear. Not a credit card transaction. Not a phone ping. Not a single trace. Maxim, please. Is it mine? The question hung between them like a blade. Lena's hand tightened over her stomach. She wanted to lie. Wanted to say no, to claim it belonged to some fictional boyfriend, to create any story that would make him leave. But Maxim had always been able to read her tells. And lies to powerful men only made the punishment worse. Yes. Something crossed his face, triumph, possession, rage. She couldn't tell. Maybe all three. Rafe. His voice carried across the restaurant without rising in volume. Command, pure and absolute. Her manager appeared like a summoned ghost, his face the color of old paper. Sir. Office. Now. And if anyone interrupts us in the next 20 minutes, I will buy this restaurant and fire every single person in it before sunrise. Yes, sir. Of course, sir. Right this way. Maxim's hand closed around Lena's wrist, not tight enough to bruise. He'd always been careful about visible marks, but firm enough that she felt the steel beneath his civilized surface. Walk. Rafe led them through the kitchen, where Chef Antoine took one look at Maxim and suddenly found something fascinating about the stovetop to study, and down a narrow hallway to his cramped office. The room smelled like old coffee and stress sweat. Barely large enough for a desk, a filing cabinet, and two chairs that had seen better decades. Out, Maxim said. Rafe fled. The door clicked shut. Suddenly, the world consisted of this tiny room, Maxim's presence filling it like smoke, and Lena's heartbeat counting down the seconds until something terrible happened. Sit. Lena sat. The chair was hard plastic, probably salvaged from a restaurant supply clearance. Maxim remained standing, blocking the door, blocking escape, blocking hope. "For months," he said softly. "You've been hiding from me for 4 months. Working in a restaurant where I take business associates. Where I take dates." His eyes flickered with something sharp. "Where I brought my fiancée to plan our honeymoon." He moved closer. "Did you know I would be here tonight?" "No." The word came out broken. "I swear I didn't know. I would never." "Never what?" "Never serve me wine while carrying my child? Never hide my son or daughter in some kitchen in Manhattan while I searched half the eastern seaboard?" He crouched down, bringing their faces level. His eyes were terrifying in their calmness. "Tell me, Yelena. When were you planning to tell me I was going to be a father? After the birth? After college? Never?" Scene 6, the truth she can't escape. "You don't understand. Then explain it to me." His voice was steel wrapped in silk. "Explain why my wife ran from our home. Explain why she's been living like this." He gestured at her worn clothes, her cheap shoes, the exhaustion carved into her face, when she had everything she could want. "Everything you wanted," Lena said, her voice shaking. "Not everything I wanted." "What did you want, then? Tell me." "Because I gave you a penthouse in Manhattan. Designer clothes. Jewelry that women would kill for. Financial security most people never see in their lifetime. I wanted to be a person, not a possession." The words burst out of her, 4 months of suppressed rage finally finding voice. "I wanted to have a conversation that didn't end with you making decisions for me. I wanted to leave the apartment without a driver reporting my every movement. I wanted to buy a coffee without wondering if the barista was on your payroll." She stood, putting the chair between them like it could somehow protect her. "I wanted to breathe without feeling like you were counting every breath." Silence fell like snow. Maxim studied her with those winter-gray eyes, analyzing, calculating, trying to understand a language he'd never learned to speak. "I was protecting you," he said finally. "My world is dangerous, Yelena. The men I do business with, they would use you against me without hesitation. Every precaution, every restriction, was to keep you safe." "Safe?" Lena laughed, the sound bitter and broken. "I felt like I was drowning. Every single day. Yet you were alive. Healthy. Provided for. Trapped. Protected. They stared at each other across the chasm of understanding that had always existed between them, him, raised in a world where control equaled love, and her, desperate for freedom that he genuinely couldn't comprehend. I've known where you were for 3 weeks. The words dropped into the silence like stones into still water. Lena's blood turned to ice. What? The apartment in Queens with the broken heat. The 90-hour work weeks. The fact that you've lost 12 pounds despite being pregnant. His smile was terrible. The debt collector calls you ignore every morning. You've been watching me? Of course I have. Did you think I would stop looking? Did you think there was anywhere on this earth you could hide from me? Horror crawled up Lena's spine like spiders. Then why didn't you? Because I wanted to see what you would do. He stood, moving around the chair, backing her against the filing cabinet. I wanted to see if you would come back on your own. If maternal instinct would overcome whatever fantasy made you run. His hand moved to her stomach, pressing against the swell with possessive certainty. I gave you 3 weeks to prove you could take care of yourself and my child. His eyes locked onto hers. You failed. Please, Lena whispered. Please, Maxim. I can't go back to that life. You don't have a choice. There's always a choice. Then choose wisely. His voice softened into something almost gentle, which was somehow worse than his anger. Come home voluntarily, as my wife, and we will rebuild what you broke. Raise our child in comfort and safety. Or fight me. He paused, letting the weight of the threat settle. And I will use every resource, every connection, every advantage I have to take custody the moment that baby is born. Lena's world tilted. You can't. I can. And I will. He leaned closer. Which future do you want for our son or daughter, Yelena? A mother who chose cooperation? Or a mother drowning in court battles she cannot win, fighting for supervised visitation? You're a monster. Yes, he agreed simply. But I'm a monster who protects what's mine. He checked his watch, the gesture casual, like they were discussing dinner plans instead of her entire future. The car will be here in 4 minutes. I suggest you say goodbye to your manager and collect any personal items from your locker. And if I run? Right now? Out the back door. Then I make a single phone call, and every exit from this building is covered before you reach the street. He stepped back, giving her space, but not freedom. I'm not the man you ran from anymore, Yelena. I've learned patience. I've learned strategy. His eyes held hers. And I've learned that some things are worth any cost to keep. He opened the office door. Rafe stood in the hallway, his face carefully blank. My wife is resigning, effective immediately, Maxim said. Calculate her final paycheck and have it ready in 3 minutes. Yes, sir. Maxim turned back to Lena. 3 minutes, Yelena. Then we go home. He walked away, leaving her in the office with its flickering fluorescent light and its smell of desperation. Lena's hands shook as she reached for her phone. She could call someone. The police. And say what? That her husband wanted her to come home? That he'd threatened to use legal means to access his own child? She could run. But he'd just proven he could find her anywhere. She could fight. But Maxim Volkov had resources that made mockery of everything she could muster. She was trapped again. Except this time, she wasn't alone in the cage. Her hand moved to her stomach, feeling the slight flutter of movement. 4 months along. Far enough that she'd felt that first butterfly tremor last week. That impossible sensation of life happening inside her body. A child. His child. Her child. A new hostage to fortune. Lena grabbed her purse from her locker, and the one photo she kept hidden there. Her mother, smiling, before cancer took her and left Lena alone in a world that ate up lonely girls like candy. She tucked the photo into her purse and walked back through the kitchen. Chef Antoine looked up from his station. For just a moment, his hard expression softened into something like pity. "Bon chance," he said quietly. "Good luck." "I'm going to need it," Lena thought. Maxim waited by the front entrance, phone to his ear, speaking rapid Russian to someone who apparently needed to understand the importance of discretion. He ended the call when he saw her approach. "Smart choice." "I didn't have a choice." "You made sure of that." "We'll discuss semantics later." He placed his hand on the small of her back, proprietary, controlling, the gesture of a man guiding his possession. "Right now, we go home." A black Mercedes waited at the curb, idling in a no-parking zone that no traffic cop would dare ticket. The driver, a man built like a concrete wall with eyes that had seen things that would break civilians, opened the rear door. Maxim handed Lena in first, then slid in beside her. The door closed with the heavy thunk of German engineering, sealing them in leather-scented silence. The car pulled away from Marrow and Vine, taking Lena away from her fragile freedom and back toward the life she'd barely escaped. She watched the city lights blur past the window and wondered if this time there would be any escape at all. The phone call. Beside her, Maxim made another call, his voice low and commanding. "Cancel the Santorini reservations. And send Serena a severance package. Generous. She'll understand it's over." He hung up and turned to Lena, his expression unreadable in the passing streetlight. "Welcome home, wife." The car drove north toward the penthouse that had once been her prison. Toward the future that had just swallowed her whole. And Lena, her hand pressed protectively over the child she'd thought she could save by running, realized that some monsters don't need chains. Some monsters just need you to love something more than you love your freedom. And Maxim Volkov had just gained the perfect leverage. The penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of a building that didn't advertise its exclusivity. It didn't need to. The lobby was all marble and silence, the kind of hush that money purchased and maintained. The doorman nodded at Maxim with practiced deference, someone who knew exactly who signed his paychecks and whose displeasure could end careers. Lena had forgotten how much she hated the elevator. 63 floors of ascending isolation. Each number lighting up on the panel like a countdown to captivity. 45, 46. 47. She felt her breathing shallow out. "Breathe," Maxim said quietly. "Hyperventilating isn't good for the baby. Don't pretend you care about what's good for me." "I don't pretend anything." The elevator dinged softly at 63. "I care about what's mine. That includes both of you now." The doors opened directly into the penthouse foyer. Lena stepped out on legs that remembered this space, this trap disguised as luxury. Travertine floors. Original artwork that cost more than most people's houses. Floor-to-ceiling windows that turned Manhattan into a glittering toy below. Beautiful. Suffocating. Exactly as she remembered. A woman in medical scrubs waited in the living room, standing beside a portable examination table that definitely hadn't been there an hour ago. Middle-aged. Competent-looking. With the neutral expression of someone paid very well to ask no questions. "Dr. One," Maxim said. "Thank you for coming on short notice." "Of course, Mr. Volkov." The doctor's eyes moved to Lena with professional assessment. "Mrs. Volkov, if you'll come with me, we'll do a quick examination to make sure everything is progressing normally." Lena looked at Maxim, realization dawning. "You called a doctor before I even agreed to come here." "I called a doctor the moment I saw you were pregnant." He removed his suit jacket, draping it over a chair with careful precision. "Dr. One has been on standby for 3 weeks, waiting for the day I brought you home." 3 weeks. He'd known where she was. watched her struggle. Waited like a spider in a web for the perfect moment to strike. The master suite had been transformed into a makeshift medical facility. The massive bed pushed aside. Equipment everywhere. A blood pressure cuff on a rolling stand. Lena changed into a paper gown with numb fingers, the material crinkling loudly in the silence. Dr. Wen was efficient. Professional. Her questions clinical. How far along? 17 weeks. Prenatal care? I saw a doctor at a clinic. Twice. Something flickered in Dr. Wen's eyes, calculation. Judgment. The unspoken knowledge that twice was woefully inadequate for 17 weeks of pregnancy. The examination continued. Blood pressure elevated. Weight below recommended. But the baby. Everything looks healthy, Dr. Wen said, squeezing gel onto Lena's stomach for the ultrasound. Would you like to see? Lena's throat tightened. She'd avoided ultrasounds at the clinic, afraid that seeing the baby would make it real. Would create an attachment she couldn't afford when she didn't know if she could even keep herself safe, let alone a child. But now. Yes. The ultrasound screen filled with grainy black and white images. There, Dr. Wen pointed. That's the head. And there's the spine. And if you look here. She adjusted the angle. You can see the heart beating. The heart. A tiny flickering movement on the screen. Impossibly fast. Impossibly alive. Lena's eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. Would you like to know the sex? Dr. Wen asked. Can you tell? I have a good view. It's. Don't tell her. Maxim's voice came from the doorway. He stood there in shirt sleeves, his tie loosened, watching the screen with an expression Lena couldn't read. I want to be surprised. Dr. Wen looked between them. Mrs. Volkov, it's your decision. But was it? Was anything her decision anymore? Don't tell me, Lena said finally. Maybe having one secret, one piece of information Maxim didn't possess, was worth keeping. Dr. Wen finished the examination in silence. Measurements. Blood flow. Notes. Finally, she stepped back. The baby is healthy. But the mother is not. She met Maxim's eyes directly. Mrs. Volkov needs rest, proper nutrition, and prenatal vitamins. She should not be working full-time. And she absolutely should not be on her feet for extended periods. Whatever she needs, Maxim said. Cost is irrelevant. The most important thing she needs is reduced stress. Dr. Wen's gaze held something sharper now. Pregnancy complicated by emotional trauma or anxiety has significantly higher risks of complications. Whatever situation led to Mrs. Volkov working herself to exhaustion while pregnant, needs to be resolved. It will be, Maxim said. She's home now. She'll have everything she needs. Dr. Wen didn't look convinced. But she was being paid to provide medical care, not relationship counseling. After Dr. Wen left, Maxim led Lena to the kitchen. Someone, not him, he didn't cook, had prepared a spread of food. Grilled chicken. Roasted vegetables. Fresh bread. A fruit salad that probably cost $40 from some organic market that delivered to billionaires at midnight. Sit. Lena sat. He plated food for her with surprising care, making sure she had protein and vegetables and complex carbohydrates. Poured her water with lemon, the way she liked it. Eat. She picked up the fork because her body needed fuel, and the baby needed nutrition, and survival sometimes meant accepting help from monsters. The food was good. Her traitorous stomach growled with appreciation. Maxim watched her eat with the focus of a man conducting an experiment. When she'd finished half the plate, he finally spoke. Tell me why you ran. You know why. No. I know you disappeared. I know you took nothing except one suitcase and my grandmother's necklace, which you also sold, presumably for rent money. Something dangerous moved beneath his controlled voice. What I don't know is why. I gave you everything, Yelena. A home. Security. My name. Access to wealth most people can't imagine. And you left it all like it meant nothing. Lena set down her fork carefully. It meant nothing because none of it was mine. It was all yours. The apartment was yours. The money was yours. Even the clothes in my closet were yours, because you chose them, approved them, controlled what I wore and when I wore it. I wanted you to look appropriate. I was invisible. The words burst out, carrying 4 months of suppressed rage. Do you know what it's like to stand in a room full of people and have no one see you? To speak and have your words dismissed before they're even finished? To realize your entire purpose is to look good in photographs and never, ever ask questions about the men having quiet conversations in corners? Maxim's expression shifted, something almost like confusion crossing his face. Those conversations weren't your concern because I was too stupid to understand? No, Maxim. Because you were protecting me from your world by making me invisible in it. She stood, needing to be at eye level. You controlled everything. What I wore. Where I went. Who I spoke to. You had drivers that reported my movements. Credit cards that required your approval for purchases over $1,000. A schedule that you made without asking what I wanted. Her voice cracked. You made me small, Maxim. Every single day. You made me smaller and smaller until I didn't recognize myself anymore. Silence fell like snow. Maxim stared at her, really looked at her, for perhaps the first time since she'd returned. I never hurt you, he said finally, his voice quiet. You never hit me, Lena corrected. That's not the same thing as not hurting me. Something shifted in his eyes. A crack in the ice. In my world, he said slowly, control equals safety. I learned that when I was 8 years old and watched my mother die because my father couldn't protect her. Because he'd been careless. Because he'd let his guard down. He moved to the window, staring out at Manhattan's glittering expanse. I swore I would never be careless. That anyone under my protection would be safe. No matter what it cost. Even if it cost my freedom. I thought. He paused. I thought providing for you was freedom. Freedom from worry. From danger. From the struggles that destroy people. But I wasn't free to choose, Lena said softly. And without choice, it's just a different kind of prison. The silence stretched. Outside, the city never slept. Lights sparkled. Lives continued. The world turned, indifferent to the two people standing in a penthouse, trying to bridge a chasm that had always existed between them. I can't be the wife you had before, Lena said finally. That woman is gone. She broke. She ran. She doesn't exist anymore. Maxim turned from the window. Then who are you now? I don't know yet. But I know I need space to figure it out. You're carrying my child. Our child. She put her hand on her stomach. And that baby deserves parents who can at least try to understand each other. Not a father who controls everything and a mother who's drowning. What are you proposing? Lena took a breath. I'll stay. For now. For the baby. But on conditions. His eyes narrowed. You're not in a position to negotiate. Actually, I am. Because you could take me to court. You could fight for custody. You could win, probably. But what you'd win is a broken woman and a child who will eventually learn that their father caged their mother. She held his gaze. Is that the legacy you want? Scene 11, the negotiation. Maxim was silent for a long moment. Then, what conditions? I want my own bank account. Not an allowance. An actual account that I control. Agreed. I want to go places without a driver reporting my every move. His jaw tightened. I can't promise no security. My enemies. I'm not asking for no security. I'm asking for privacy. There's a difference. Agreed. Within reason. I want to make my own decisions about my schedule, my clothes, my life. I want to be treated like a partner, not a possession. And in return, I'll stay. I'll let you be part of this pregnancy. I'll try, and I'm not promising I'll succeed, but I'll try to rebuild something that looks like a marriage. You're asking me to trust you, Maxim said slowly. After you ran. No. I'm asking you to trust that controlling me didn't work. And maybe, just maybe, giving me freedom might. You could run again. I could. But I won't. How do I know? Lena moved to where he stood by the window. For the first time since entering the penthouse, she voluntarily closed the distance between them. Because I'm choosing to stay. Not because you're forcing me. Not because I'm trapped. But because I'm choosing to give this a chance. She looked up at him. That's the difference, Maxim. Choice. It's the only thing that makes any of this real. Maxim studied her face, searching for deception, for weakness, for whatever tells he'd learned to read over their brief, disastrous marriage. Finally, he nodded. 3 months, he said. We try it your way for 3 months. I'll loosen the reins. Give you space. Let you breathe. And if it doesn't work? Then we renegotiate. Like adults. Not like a captor and prisoner. He extended his hand, formal, almost businesslike. Do we have a deal, Yelena? Lena looked at his hand. At the man who'd terrified her, controlled her, and yet somehow also protected her in his own twisted way. She thought about the baby growing inside her. About the future. About whether it was possible to build something real from broken pieces. She took his hand. Deal. That night, Lena slept in the guest room. Maxim didn't argue. Didn't demand she share his bed. Didn't exert control. It was a small thing. A tiny gesture. But it felt like victory. Through the door, she could hear him on the phone, speaking in rapid Russian, rearranging his world to accommodate the agreement they'd made. And for the first time in months, Lena felt something she'd almost forgotten. Not happiness. Not exactly. But something close to hope. The baby came 3 weeks early, in the middle of a snowstorm that shut down half of Manhattan. Dr. Wen arrived within 20 minutes, because of course Maxim had arranged for her to be on call 24/7. Labor lasted 14 hours. Maxim stayed the entire time, holding Lena's hand through contractions, bringing her ice chips, looking more terrified than she'd ever seen him face down armed men. At 3:47 a.m., their daughter entered the world. Tiny. Perfect. Screaming with the fury of someone who'd been evicted from a comfortable situation. She has your eyes, Maxim whispered, cradling the baby with the careful terror of someone holding dynamite. She has your stubbornness, Lena said, exhausted and crying and somehow laughing at the same time. They named her Sophia. After Maxim's mother. The 3 months of their agreement turned into 6. It wasn't perfect. They fought. They disagreed. There were moments when Lena felt the old suffocation creeping back, and moments when Maxim struggled against his instinct to control everything. But slowly, painfully, imperfectly, they learned to navigate a new dynamic. Lena started taking online classes. Business management. Not because Maxim suggested it, but because she wanted to. She made friends. Real friends, not the carefully vetted companions from before. She opened her own bank account, like they'd agreed. Maxim deposited a substantial amount, then, after she threatened to give it all to charity, reduced it to something reasonable. And Maxim learned to ask instead of demand. To request instead of require. To trust instead of control. It didn't come naturally to him. He'd spent his entire life building walls, creating systems of control to keep chaos at bay. But every time Sophia grabbed his finger with her tiny fist, every time Lena smiled at him without that edge of fear in her eyes, he remembered why he was trying. On Sophia's first birthday, they stood on the penthouse balcony, watching the city lights while their daughter slept inside. "I've been thinking," Lena said. "Dangerous habit," Maxim replied, but there was warmth in his voice. "About that night at the restaurant. When you found me. What about it? I thought my life was over. I thought you'd drag me back into that cage and I'd never escape again." She turned to face him. "But you didn't. You changed. We changed. You gave me no choice," Maxim said. "You made it clear the old way didn't work. You could have ignored me. Could have gone back to controlling everything. I could have." He pulled her close, his chin resting on the top of her head. "But I would have lost you. Really lost you. Not just your body in my house, but everything that makes you, you. So you chose me over control. I chose us over my fear." Lena looked up at him. "Do you regret it? The control you gave up?" Maxim was quiet for a long moment. Every poll question. Would you give Maxim a second chance? Fire yes or broken heart no. Discussion starter. What's the one boundary you would never compromise on in a relationship? Let's talk in the comments. Story request. Want more stories like this? Comment more Maxim if you want a sequel about their life with Sophia. Personal connection. Have you ever felt trapped in a perfect situation? You're safe here. Share your story below. Backhand index pointing down. Day, I fight the instinct to put you back in that cage. To know where you are every second. To make every decision for you. He met her eyes. But then I see you laughing with Sophia. Or challenging me in a meeting. Or making your own choices, even when I think they're wrong, and I realize. What? That the woman I fell in love with was never the obedient possession I tried to create. She was the fire that refused to be contained. And choosing to let you burn freely instead of smothering you in protection. He smiled, rare and genuine. That's the only way to keep you. So there you have it. Lena and Maxim's story. Not a fairy tale. Not a romance where love conquers all with a kiss. But a real story about two broken people learning that love isn't about possession, it's about choice. If this story moved you, I need you to do 3 things. Hit that subscribe button, because you've just invested 45 minutes in this journey, and I have dozens more stories like this waiting for you. Comment below, tell me, could you forgive someone like Maxim? Could you stay and try to rebuild? Or would you have run again? I read every single comment. Share this with someone who needs to hear that love shouldn't feel like a cage. That real love creates space, not chains. The life lesson. Here's what Lena and Maxim's story teaches us. Control is not love. Protection that suffocates is just another form of harm. Real love requires trust, even when trust is terrifying. You cannot fix someone by accepting less than you deserve. Lena didn't save her marriage by staying trapped, she saved it by demanding to be seen as an equal. Change is possible, but only when both people choose it. Maxim didn't change because Lena begged. He changed because the alternative was losing everything that mattered. Gemstone. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stay and fight. Running isn't always cowardice, and staying isn't always strength. But knowing which path is yours requires brutal honesty with yourself. Gemstone. Your chains might be golden, but they're still chains. Money, security, even love, none of it means anything if you're not free to be yourself. To everyone who's ever felt trapped in a relationship where love felt like ownership. To everyone who's ever had to choose between security and freedom. To everyone rebuilding something broken and wondering if it's worth it. You are not alone. Your story matters. Your choice matters. And whether you choose to stay and fight or leave and heal, both paths take courage. Thank you for letting me tell Lena's story. Thank you for being here. Now go. Subscribe. Comment. Share. And remember, the strongest cages are the ones we don't recognize until we try to leave. Don't wait until you can't breathe to start asking for windows.